Hello, team. This is Dr. Miranda, and it is a great privilege to get to spend a few moments with you. We're going to be looking at the structure or the global structure for international trade. This course, it's about issues in international business. And there are some. And there are formable challenges even today to global trade. Okay. We have inequities around the world. We have economic downturns globally, and we have different political systems that we have to deal with. We also have terrorism to contend with. We also have ignorance as another major obstacle. We have human greed. We have ambition. So all of these components all play into some of the interesting dynamics that we are going to be looking at when we are dealing with issues in international trade. So this course is really about looking at international trade and the structures that support international trade, the components that goes into international trade, not just from an operational point of view, but more of a big picture or a holistic manner. International business trade has been going on ever since the inception of the human race. Ever since one village looked at the other village and said, I think I can get a better horse in that village. And so they reached out, and again, it was a part of a different nation or a different group or a different tribe. That is, of course, the beginning of international trade. It is somewhat simplistic in its view, but we can say that's pretty much how it started. And then, of course, with the advancement of technology, with the advancement of the creation of the nation states, and then international borders, and then more, I would say, complex international systems and commerce systems, and better ways of conducting international business. So we've arrived at the 21st century globalism, or the movement of international trade and international trade in a very integrative manner. And so before we launch into this magnificent journey to actually now talk about the issues in international business, in international trade, in globalism and global trade, we must understand the very structures that enable international trade to take over, because international trade or even globalism doesn't happen in a vacuum. Okay, doesn't happen in a world that's disassociated with everything else. It happens in the world where real people live. It happens in the world where real people trade. It happens in the world where real people conduct their daily living, their daily businesses, and nations talk with one another. In a world where we have different religions, different politics, different point of view, different ideologies. We're living also, in the world where there's greed, there's corruption, but there's also a lot of good. And so international trade does not happen in a vacuum. And just like everything else in society, it needs a structure in order to thrive. Now, I will tell you from the get-go that these organizations that we are going to talk about today are not perfect organizations. Okay? They have their difficulties even now. They have had their challenges, and they continue to have challenges. I don't believe that these organizations are part of a global conspiracy group who are trying to take over the world and create a one world order government, big brother, blah, 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 blah. It makes good Hollywood, makes really great storytelling, especially when you're out camping and having a good time with your friends. But in the real world of business, in the real world of politics, in the real world in which we live, and excuse me, I think my bow tie just moved. um, these organizations, they are, for the most part, good organizations. For the most part, they are effective organizations. For the most part, they have done good in the world. And I believe that with better leadership, with more efficient methodologies, and I think with more active participation from our global leaders and our global community, that these organizations will even do better. Okay, it's the best we have right now, and it's up to you, the students, and those of you who are going to be political leaders and going to also become, hopefully, uh, the leaders in this emerging global community. Excuse me. Look at that. You will see that I sometimes can deviate from a topic or two, but it's okay. It only shows that I'm only human and I'm able to recover really quick. But once again, I'm hoping that as we discuss these organizations, then some of you will one day be inspired to become global leaders, to become people who will perhaps join and even lead these organizations. You may say, "Oh, but I'm just a little person. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough connections." Well, you never know where you may end up. You never know. I believe hard work and dedication will actually make and open doors for you. But that is, of course, topic for another day. Okay. So let's talk about these global structures because before we actually talk about, the issues in international trade. The first of all, one that we're going to discuss is the World Trade Organization. Okay. The WTO. Some people have called it the World Trade Federation, but I like it the World Trade Organization better. Okay, and they basically deals with the rules of trade between nations. Okay, they are a body of negotiators. Okay, and basically they are mentors and they help to sign the bulk of trading agreement between countries, okay, and of course between the parliament or the political ruling elites body of those nations. And of course, the main goal of the WTO is to have the producer of goods and services and the importers of their products to come up with a fair deal, of course, so that both parties win. Okay, and that of course all the countries have a fair chance to participate and global trade. So it's a good organization, imagining the nations of the world coming together, creating an organization, and that organization serves as a fair arbiter between nations and their international trade. An organization that doesn't take sides, an organization that looks at the big country and a smaller country has an equal and having equal footing in opportunities. Imagine an organization that really does provide for fair trade between the nations. Now, we have, of course, that organization is the WTO, and it's a very controversial organization. Has the WTO really who provided free trade? I'm not. I want to actually retract that back. I want to say provided because the WTO doesn't provide anything. It's not in the business of providing. That, of course, is the purview of the producers, of the parties that conduct businesses between themselves. Okay, but they are meant to be the arbiters. Arbiters of what? For fair trade. Now, has the WTO been a very effective organization in promoting fair trade among the nations of the world and signatories and member states of the WTO? Has the WTO been an organization that really stands up for the welfare of all of its members and really promoted the free trade and, most of all, fair and balanced trade among its member states? Some would say no, that the WTO has failed tremendously in that regards, that the WTO always weighs in favor of the most powerful nations, always disregarding the smaller nations, the least important nations. They always point out to the litigation, that often makes the litigation process and the WTO very, very sluggish, very tedious. Right? Others have said, no, listen, it's a great organization. It's doing its job. It has many litigations, but it's the very nature of an arbiter is to actually look at these issues. Sometimes the absence of litigation doesn't necessarily point out to an organization's effectiveness. For that matter, you cannot simply point out to the multiple litigation happening at the WTO between contesting nations and groups to say that it is being effective. I think that as a professor, I don't pick sides. Okay, I have my own views, and in a personal conversation over some good coffee, okay, we can discuss what my point of view is. But in a classroom environment, my job is to provide you with the information, and then you are responsible to make the research, and you then come up with your own point of view and your own opinions. Okay? But the WTO has, in all fairness, been trying very hard to promote fair and free trade. Have they gotten it right all the time? No. Okay. Has the WTO been really good at promoting fair trade? I would say not. But have they tried? I believe they have. Has the leadership of the WTO has good intentions? I believe so. But as to its effectiveness, as to its relevance, that's really up for you to decide. Okay, as a scholar, it's your job to look at the information. As a business leader, it's your job to conduct the research. Okay, and this is what I'm doing here. Okay, is I'm providing you with some basic information right now, but it's your responsibility to actually dig a little bit deeper and look at the truth of the matter, right? Now, also, another beautiful body. Now, some will not like it. Some will say, how dare you say beautiful? They've only caused problems in the world. But there's always a matter of perspective, isn't it? And that's always the danger. Well, I don't say danger, the challenge when teaching across international borders online. As a professor in such an environment, I again have my own opinions. I again have my loyalties. I again have my own things that I adhere to, my religious views, ideology, political background. Those are very personal. And in international arena where I teach business, often to international students who come from different backgrounds, different religion, different ideologies. Okay, I think it's very dangerous for a professor to weigh in his or her own personal opinion. about about a different subject. That can be done in another setting. Okay. The job of the professor is to bring the information that's being taught, and there's a lot of areas of discussion already just on the structure of global business structure there, to have some really great information over, okay? Because um, we run the risk of unnecessarily offending people. And when you offend someone, they shut the door and it's hard to get anything through. Okay. So the IMF is another, I would say, structure that helps international trade. The IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, is an organization of approximately 189 countries. And what do they do? It works together towards the goal of what? Of monetary cooperation, securing financial stabilities of all their member states, okay, and also to help facilitate international trade. And in doing so, they promote employment and to help push that growth in a very sustainable and systematic way. Okay. Through all of these actions, the main goal, of course, of the IMF is to reduce poverty throughout all of its member countries. Okay. Now, the IMF is a very interesting institution. Okay, because they work in tandem with the WTO in that they really have points of contact that overlap. Okay, but the IMF deals primarily with currencies. Okay, now the IMF, however, has a real bad history. Now, the bad history comes from whether you are in a developed world or the developing world. And even within the developing world, okay, the IMF had certain failures or certain successes, okay, but they are primarily involved with currency issues, okay, and also trade issues, not as heavily involved with the WTO, okay, but they're primarily also involved in the funding because they also work with the World Bank. But the International Monetary Fund has had, and I'm speaking now from a personal experience from Brazil. That was my country of birth, and I spent a good deal in Brazil. And I can attest to you that the IMF was not very well loved in Brazil. Now, why? It was because the very unwise policies of the IMF as far as currency and loans that were done in Brazil for the Brazilian government. That money, of course, at the time was mostly used by corrupt officials, and now the nation itself did not receive the benefit of the monetary currency operations from the IMF and the loans and whatnot. And so the money was stolen by the politicians, and the people were left hanging for the balance. Now you can say, how is that the IMF's fault? Well, it's not. And I'm not blaming the IMF. But the IMF came time and time and time again, providing sources of funding, providing channels for the sources of funding, and setting up certain policies that help to bankrupt the Brazilian nation. Now, with time, with wisdom, guidance, and thank God, the Brazilian government was able to actually repay those loans. And as of 10 years ago, the country was solvent again. Okay. So the issue with the IMF has been the lack of wise monetary policies throughout its member states. Sometimes a heavy-handed approach and sometimes a very lackadaisical approach. Now, again, cannot fully blame the IMF, okay, because again, I believe they had the best intentions in mind. But the IMF is a very important uh, uh, module, so to speak, for international business because you want stable currencies. You want businesses to depend on the stability of monetary policies across the IMF's member worlds. So it's a very important agency, and I know it has been demonized time and time again. But again, we must not blame the IMF, though, for the unwise decisions of the governments, okay, that also make unwise and sometimes criminal decisions, okay? Um, and again, we're really all just trying to work to make things better, are we not? Okay. Now the other one, and this is I really like this organization. You can say, well, and I'll tell you why I like it, is the World Bank. Now it's not your typical bank. Okay, it's not SunTrust, it's not Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or any other bank around the world. It's a very different type of bank. Okay. And what it does is it provides low interest loans and grants to developing countries, okay, to support those countries in developing efforts such as education, health, and infrastructure. Okay. Now, um, the beautiful thing about the World Bank is its work in economic development. Now, how can we have economic development, right? Well, we have to build the country's infrastructure for that. You got to have electricity, you got to have water, you got to have health, okay? You need to have the infrastructure for global trade. You have to have ports, you need to have airports, you have to have roads, okay? You have to have industry, developing industry. These things are very important. To have the infrastructure in a country to enable international business is very important. Also, I like the World Bank dealing with health issues. And you say, but that's meddling. That should belong to the to the nation. It's not the responsibility of the World Bank. Of course, it's not. But to have a bank that provides funding in a responsible manner to sectors in that society to which governments may not have the ability to serve, to build a clinic, to build a hospital, to building infrastructure. How is that helping global trade? Well, it's enabling better health system in the country, isn't it? And the healthier the citizens, the more productive the citizens will be. You're saying, but that looks too much like Machiavelli. No, we all want good health because when we have good health, we produce. We produce services, we produce goods. It doesn't matter if you are an agricultural worker, if you are the CEO of a company, if you are mid-level management, the healthier you are, the more you are going to produce. And so we want a society of healthy producers, of healthy providers of services and goods. And that's something that the World Bank is into helping create the infrastructure that promotes health services for its developing member states. Okay. Now, another thing I personally like about the World Bank, I don't work for the World Bank, but I have and continue to use their data. They have a tremendous set, okay, of data sets of economic data in all for all the countries of the world. Beautiful, wonderful indexes of trade and development and GDP. I mean, and now that they have come together with IBM and they have these beautiful systems, big data crunches and systems to analyze the data and to provide you that information through the internet and distribute it to their website. It is just something that's amazing, and I use that for my research. So those of you who need that type of data, just go to the World Bank website and you can download it from there. Okay, so these are the main organizations, okay, that are of course used has the infrastructure for global trade. Some have said, well, what about the UN? You forgot the UN. Isn't the UN a big partner in international trade? Yes. The UN is another player, another another component in the infrastructure of international trade, but it is not the main structure that promotes and facilitates international trade. Now, what is the most, among all of them, the most important infrastructure in global trade? What is the most important structure in global trade? Without this component, there is no international trade. Without this component, international trade dies, globalism dies. You say, hey, Dr. Miranda, you got me curious. What is it? You. What do you mean me? You, the consumer. The consumer is the driver of economic trade. Okay? We are the most important component in international trade. So the more we know about international trade, the more we know about the infrastructure which helps international trade, it's actually going to empower us as consumers, is it not? Right? You're saying, but how? Because we will be able to participate in a more effective manner in helping in the electing those of us who live in democratic countries and have a representative system of government. We will be able to better gauge our leaders that represent us and that get elected by us. We will be able to better understand the businesses around us, the nationals and the multinationals, but we'll understand that we, the consumers, the number one most important factor in international trade. And that's why we must understand what these systems are that promote international trade. Of course, next comes the business producers, right? The manufacturers and business leaders, and also has students of international business. We must understand and become experts in those areas and have a good solid understanding now of the structures that drive international business. Now, we will cover, of course, other dynamics that then will serve as a pivot point to where we can discuss now the issues that confront international business. Okay? So thank you so very much for your time, and I'm really looking forward to workshop 2 and all the wonderful activities and dynamic learning environment that we are going to have. If you have any questions, any concerns, please contact me, and it will be my privilege to assist you in that. Have a good day.